Victoria Adonze had everything. Tall office towers, rows of luxury cars, private jets always ready to fly. People stood up when she walked into a boardroom. They clapped when she gave a speech. Her phone never stopped ringing. She was rich beyond anything most people could dream of. Her family owned Adonze Global Corp, one of the biggest companies on the continent. People feared her, some admired her. But deep inside, Victoria was tired. Tired of fake smiles. Tired of men who only wanted her money, not her heart. The world called her brilliant, powerful, and untouchable. But then came the lonely nights. Every night was too quiet. She lived alone in a massive house with rooms she never entered. The lights were always on, but her heart felt empty. Her bed was soft and warm, but sleep never came easily. She would lie there staring at the ceiling, asking herself the same question every single night. Does anyone love me for who I really am? Victoria had dated many men, engineers, doctors, and famous personalities. They smiled wide when she paid the bills. They laughed at her jokes, even when they were not funny. But deep down, she knew they didn't love her. They loved the Trillionaire. Then came Raymond. He was smart, charming, and warm, or so she thought. She gave her heart. She bought a ring. She planned a future. But one morning, she walked into her office and found him in a private room with her head of marketing, laughing and kissing. Victoria said nothing. She turned around and walked out quietly. That day, something in her broke. She called off the wedding, let the marketing director go, and locked herself in her home for days. No one saw her, not even her personal assistant, Grace. People thought she had traveled abroad for business, but she stayed home, thinking, hurting, and wondering, was I not enough for him? If I had no money, would anyone choose me? That night, as heavy rain fell outside and thunder shook the windows, Victoria stood near the glass and whispered to herself, I'm going to find out. She picked up her phone and called Grace. Get me an old blouse, worn-out trousers, and flat rubber sandals, she said. Ma'am? Grace asked, confused. No designer clothes, no handbag, no car. I want to look like a woman who has nothing. Grace stayed quiet for a second, then said, Yes, ma'am. Victoria Adonze, Trillionaire CEO of Adonze Global Corp, had made up her mind. She was going to pretend to be a poor beggar, not to play games, but to find out if real love still existed in this world. Victoria did not rush. She knew that if she suddenly appeared as a street beggar, someone might recognize her. So she decided to take it slow, one step at a time. She stopped wearing makeup. She stopped putting on her usual stylish clothes. Instead, she wore plain tops, rubber slippers, and faded trousers with small holes. No wristwatch, no perfume, no security cars following her. She packed a small bag and left her house before sunrise. The house staff thought she had traveled. No one knew where she was going, not even her parents. They were in Dubai for a business trip. That made things easier. This was her chance. Victoria found a small room in a run-down part of the city. The walls had cracks in them, the window had no curtain. The mattress smelled of old dust, but she did not complain. She wanted to live like someone who had nothing. Every day she walked the streets. She took up small work, helping traders arrange goods at the market, cleaning stalls, sometimes carrying water for shops nearby. She was paid in small coins that she folded carefully into her pocket. Nobody knew who she was, and for the first time in many years, she felt completely invisible. Strangely, it felt good. At night, Victoria sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the torn paper calendar on the wall, thinking about her life, the real her, the one hidden beneath money and power. This is what she had needed, a clean start, a blank page. She spoke only when necessary. She smiled at people who passed by. Most of them ignored her. A few nodded. Some stared. But no one recognized her. She had always stayed away from public attention, even as a trillionaire. That worked well now. Back in her world, Grace was working quietly behind the scenes. She trusted Victoria, even if she did not fully understand the plan. She used a high-end dating app to arrange blind dates for her boss. Each man was given the same story. You are meeting a woman who once had a comfortable life but lost everything. She is now doing daily work and trying to rebuild her life. None of them knew they were about to meet Victoria Adonze, the trillionaire daughter of Chief and Mrs. Adonze. Victoria met each man at simple spots.
Victoria woke up one morning and sat on her bed, staring at the wall. The ceiling fan turned slowly above her. The air was hot. Her clothes clung to her back with sweat. Her heart felt exhausted. She had been kind, patient, and honest, yet every man treated her like either a joke or an opportunity. She picked up her phone and called Grace. When Grace answered, Victoria didn't even say hello. She just said, "I'm done." Grace paused. "What do you mean, ma'am?" "I've tried. I've walked these streets. I've sat in broken chairs. I've eaten food from cheap plates, and still nothing. No one is real." She closed her eyes. "I'm just a target, Grace. They don't want me. They want what they think I might have." She was ready to pack her bag and go back to her mansion. But then Grace's voice softened. "There are good men out there, ma'am," she said quietly. "I married one of them." Victoria went silent. "You never talked about your husband," she replied. "He was not rich when we got married," Grace said. "We met when we had nothing but hope. Now, 10 years later, we're still happy and have everything we need." Victoria didn't respond. Grace added, "Don't let 3 bad men stop you from believing in the right one." Victoria scoffed. "You really believe someone can love a woman who has nothing?" Grace replied, "Yes, but only if that woman becomes nothing for real." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Fine," she said. "Let's take it all the way." Grace blinked. "What do you mean?" "I'll go out again," Victoria said, standing up slowly, "but this time not as a poor worker. I want to see if anyone in this world can love a woman who looks like she has lost everything." She paused. "I'll become a homeless beggar." There was a long silence. Then Grace said quietly, "Okay, ma'am, I'll help." The next day, Grace brought a bag. Inside were torn trousers, 2 ragged tops, a faded hoodie with holes, and worn-out sandals. There was also an old cloth sack, stained and fraying at the edges. Victoria put them on. She looked in the mirror. Even she didn't recognize herself. Grace adjusted her scarf and whispered, "Don't speak much. Just sit, watch, and listen." Victoria nodded. Then she reached into a small metal box and pulled out something she had prepared the night before, a folded check. It was signed, amount $5 million. She slipped it into the lining of her top. "I'll give this," she said, "to the first man who shows me real kindness, not because I beg him, but because he freely chooses to care." Grace swallowed hard. "Good luck, ma'am." Victoria took her sack and left. She sat near market gates, bus stops, and busy road junctions in the heart of the city. Her clothes were dusty. Her hair was rough. She didn't speak unless someone spoke to her first. People walked past. Some looked at her with pity. Some laughed. A few dropped coins. Most ignored her completely. Hours passed. Then days. The world moved around her like a rushing river, but Victoria stayed still, waiting, watching, and hoping. From early morning to late evening, she changed locations, sometimes by the roadside, other times near bus parks and market entrances. People passed her every minute. Some whispered, some stared, some walked right through her as if she were invisible. A few dropped coins. One man even threw leftover food at her like she were an animal. But the ones who hurt her the most were those who pretended to care. There was a young man named Tayo who stopped beside her, smiled sweetly, and said, "You look like you've been through a lot." Victoria looked up, grateful, pretending she hadn't eaten all day. "Please," she said softly, "can I have some water or a piece of bread?" Tayo's smile disappeared at once. "You want to eat?" He burst out laughing and walked away, calling his friend on the phone. "Guess what? Some dirty beggar woman just asked me for food." Another man, Femi, sat beside her, took selfies with her, and told her to smile for the camera. He uploaded the photos with a caption, "Giving back to the less fortunate. Blessed life." Then he left without a word. No food, no kindness, just likes and comments on his post. Victoria began to wonder if the world had lost its heart completely. Maybe Grace was wrong. Maybe kindness was truly gone. It was on the 5th evening. The sky was dark and heavy with clouds. Rain had started to fall. Not soft rain, but sharp, cold drops that hit the ground hard and soaked everything. Victoria pulled her hoodie tighter. She sat near a small tailor shop. Its wooden sign was barely hanging. The needle and thread logo on it had faded from years of sun. Then he came. He jogged across the road with a black umbrella in one hand and a takeaway bag in the other. His clothes were plain, a simple gray shirt and dark trousers. He wore flat shoes and carried a small school bag on his back. He stopped suddenly when he saw her sitting under a leaking iron shade. His eyes showed no fear or disgust. They showed something else, concern. "You're getting soaked," he said gently, stepping closer. Victoria looked up. She was shivering. He opened his takeaway bag and brought out a small container. He offered it to her with both hands. "It's jollof rice and chicken. I was taking it home for dinner, but please eat. You look like you haven't eaten all day." Victoria took it slowly, unable to believe what was happening. He also unfolded the dry jacket he tied around his waist and placed it over her shoulders. "This is dry. You'll fall sick sitting in the rain like this." She stared at him quietly. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled and sat beside her on the low step. "I'm Daniel. I teach at the community school just down the road." She nodded. "I'm Victoria, just trying to get by." "I can see that," he replied softly. "Life has been rough on many people lately." He didn't ask for anything. He didn't take pictures. He didn't talk down to her. Just kindness, pure and honest. After a while, the rain grew heavier. Daniel looked at her and said, "If you want, you can wait by my shop until the rain stops. I rent a small space nearby where I fix and sell secondhand books in the evenings." Victoria swallowed a lump in her throat. "No one has spoken to me kindly in a long time." Daniel smiled gently. "Then it's about time someone did." She followed him to his small shop, crowded with shelves of old and new books, a small wooden desk and a reading lamp, and for the first time in weeks, Victoria felt accepted. That night, the rain did not stop. It kept pouring. Daniel boiled water in a small kettle and poured it into 2 cups. "Drink this," he said, handing her a warm cup of tea. "You'll feel better." They sat in silence for a while. Then Victoria spoke softly. "I'm homeless now." Daniel looked at her, surprised but not shocked. She expected pity or judgment, but he simply nodded. "Well, if you don't mind," he said, looking around his small shop, "you can stay here tonight. It's not much, but it's dry and safe." Victoria blinked. "You'd let me stay here?" He smiled gently. "Why not? I sleep here most nights anyway, grading papers and organizing books. I'll bring blankets." She felt something warm rise in her chest. Not from the tea, but from him. She looked around at the shelves of books. "I can help you," she said, "with sorting books or anything else." Daniel laughed quietly. "You know how to organize a library?" "I can learn," she said. And so days passed.
Victoria helped tidy the shop, sort and label books, and carry bags for customers who came in. In the evenings, she waited for Daniel to return from school, dusty and tired, but always smiling. He would change into his reading shirt and work until late at night, marking exam papers, fixing torn book covers, and helping evening students who dropped by. Victoria watched him closely. He was not just kind, he was fire and grace all at once. A man who taught children all day and still had the energy to build something of his own in the evenings. One afternoon, as they sorted through a box of old books and laughed at a funny drawing someone had scribbled inside a history textbook, Victoria said jokingly, "You know I'm actually a trillionaire, right?" Daniel chuckled without even looking up. "Well, whether rich or poor, a kind woman is still a treasure." Victoria smiled. She reached into her top and brought out the folded check. She placed it on the desk. Daniel looked at it, picked it up, and read the numbers slowly. "5 million, he said, with raised eyebrows. He looked at Victoria and then laughed again. "You must be writing a story," he said, folding it and handing it back. "That's a creative amount." Victoria just stared at him, amazed. He didn't even blink. Not once did his eyes show greed. One evening, as they ate roasted plantain and groundnuts outside the shop, Daniel looked quiet. Victoria noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Just thinking." "About what?" He looked at her, a little shy. "My family. My mother has been asking me to bring someone home. There's a celebration this weekend, her 60th birthday. Everyone will be there. Aunties, uncles, cousins, and questions." "Questions?" "You know the kind." He smiled faintly. "When will you settle down? Where is your person? Are you hiding someone?" Victoria chuckled. "I know those questions too well." Daniel looked at her, eyes soft. "I was wondering, would you come with me, just to stand beside me? I know it's a big ask, but I'd rather go with someone I trust than face it alone or make up a story." Victoria looked at him. He wasn't joking. He wasn't ashamed of her. In her ragged clothes, dusty sandals, and old hoodie, he was asking her to stand beside him. She smiled, heart pounding quietly. "I'd be honored." Victoria and Daniel traveled to his family home early Saturday morning. Victoria had washed her face and worn a simple but clean wrapper and blouse. She no longer looked like a street beggar, but she wore nothing flashy either, just simple, clean, respectful. As they arrived at the family compound, loud voices, music, and laughter filled the yard. His mother's birthday celebration was already in full swing. Plastic chairs were arranged in rows, pots of rice steaming, meat sizzling on an open grill. They had barely stepped in when his elder brother Kenneth spotted them. Kenneth wore a bold, embroidered agbada in gold cufflinks and walked like he owned the street. He was a senior partner at a law firm in the big city and made sure everyone knew it. He glanced at Victoria from head to toe, his nose wrinkled. "Is this her?" he said, folding his arms. "Daniel, this is your person?" Daniel smiled, his arm linked gently with Victoria. "Yes, Kenneth, meet Victoria." Kenneth didn't smile. His eyes scanned her simple wrapper, quiet shoes, and calm face. "You couldn't find someone a little more polished?" he asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Or at least someone who looks like she borrowed her outfit from a market stall?" Victoria didn't respond. She simply nodded respectfully. "Nice to meet you." Kenneth scoffed and walked away. As they walked further in, Daniel whispered, "Sorry about him." Victoria smiled. "I've heard worse." Later that afternoon, the whole family gathered around the dinner table. Plates clinked, drinks flowed, and voices buzzed. Then Marcus walked in, tall, well-dressed, loud, Daniel's old classmate and rival. He wore a designer shirt and walked as if he were the guest of honor.
He greeted everyone with a wide smile and gave Daniel's mother a long hug, then turned his eyes to Victoria. "I heard you brought someone. Is this her?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, this is Victoria." Marcus looked her up and down. "Well, well," he said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "From the look of things, Daniel's taste hasn't improved much." A few people laughed nervously. Daniel didn't flinch, but Victoria leaned forward. "I would choose Daniel over a room full of loud men any day," she said calmly, "because unlike most, he actually listens." Marcus's smile stiffened, but before he could reply, Daniel's mother cleared her throat. Her voice was firm. "Victoria, tell me," she said, "what exactly—"
Victoria held Daniel's hand tightly as they stepped toward the gate. Her eyes burned, but she didn't let the tears fall. Not here, not in front of them. They had mocked her clothes, her silence, her presence, but she didn't care. She was proud of him, proud of the man who stood beside her without shame. He worked hard and had a good heart. That was enough for her. They were 2 steps from the gate when it happened. Horns, lights, engines. The ground trembled lightly. Everyone turned. Through the estate gates, 3 black SUVs rolled in, one after the other, engines humming smoothly. Behind them, 2 long sedans. The vehicles moved slowly, commanding every eye in the yard. The music stopped. Even the DJ turned around. The first SUV door opened, and a tall woman in a sharp black suit stepped out, wearing an earpiece. She scanned the crowd, nodded once, and opened the rear door of the second vehicle. Grace stepped out, dressed in elegant corporate wear. She walked straight toward Victoria. "Ma'am," she said with a small, respectful bow, "everything is ready." Gasps spread through the crowd like fire. "Ma'am? Who is she talking to?" Before anyone could understand, more security staff stepped out of the cars. People began recording on their phones. One man whispered, "Is this a film shoot?" A woman said, "Wait, that lady looks like someone I've seen on the business channel." Daniel's hand trembled slightly in Victoria's. She turned to him, her eyes soft. Then, gently, she let go of his hand, took 2 steps forward, reached into her bag, and pulled out a folded document. She opened it and raised her voice, not in anger, but clear and steady, loud enough for every person in that yard to hear. "My name is Victoria Adanze." The silence was complete. "I am the CEO of Adanze Global Corp. And the daughter of Chief and Mrs. Adanze." She held up her documents, her identity papers and share certificates. People grabbed their phones and started searching. Photos of her with world leaders, business awards, magazine covers. Patrick's mouth fell open. The woman who mocked her dropped her wine. The man who called her a scammer sat down slowly, pale. A teenage boy near the back had been live streaming everything. Within minutes, the video was trending online. Beggar woman turns out to be Trillionaire. Victoria Adanze reveals herself. Victoria turned to Daniel. Her voice became soft. "I came to you with nothing, Daniel. No name, no status, just a tired heart and empty hands." He stood frozen, tears filling his eyes. "You gave me food when you barely had enough. You gave me shelter when you thought I had nowhere to go. You gave me kindness when the world gave me judgment." She knelt down and brought out a small velvet box. The entire crowd gasped. Even the security staff looked surprised. She opened it slowly. A diamond ring glittered under the evening lights. "Daniel," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "you are a rare and honest man. I want to spend the rest of my life being grateful that I found you. Will you marry me?" Daniel covered his mouth, tears falling freely. He nodded. "Yes, yes, Victoria." The yard broke into applause. Some people clapped with genuine joy. Others stood frozen in shame. Patrick walked up slowly, face red. "Victoria, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." She looked at him calmly.
You judged the cover, not the book." Then she turned back to Daniel, holding his hand, eyes never leaving his. He was the only one who saw her, and in that moment, surrounded by silent stares and phone cameras, Victoria and Daniel walked away side by side, not as beggar and teacher, but as two people who had found in each other what money could never buy. 2 days after the party drama, Victoria held a press conference. It was not about business, it was personal. Cameras flashed, microphones were held out, reporters waited. Then Victoria stepped to the podium in a deep blue suit, calm and confident. Grace stood beside her. She cleared her throat. "I have a personal announcement to make today, one that means more to me than any company deal." She looked into the cameras. "I want to publicly introduce the man who changed my life with a plate of rice, a dry jacket, and the most honest heart I have ever known." She smiled. "His name is Daniel Okoro, and he is my fiancé." The press room erupted. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Blogs, headlines, social media feeds. Beggar woman turns out to be trillionaire. Victoria Adanze reveals herself. Back in his family compound,
Victoria left the mansion that day feeling torn in two. She had chosen love, but at what cost? Her inheritance, her company, her family name. That night, she sat with Daniel in his small living room. The ceiling fan turned above them. A single bulb lit the room. He sat beside her quietly. He could see the weight in her eyes. "You don't have to say it," he said softly. "I know what your parents said." Victoria turned to him. "I don't care what they say." "But Victoria," he whispered, "you've built that company since you were 20 years old. It's your life. It's your name." She held his hand. "You are more than all of that. I have my own assets. I won't go under. I can start again." His eyes filled with tears. "I feel like I'm pulling you away from everything you built." "You're not," she said. "You're giving me something better." But deep inside, Daniel was hurting. He saw the pressure, the headlines, the deals falling apart because of him. He didn't want to be the reason she lost what she had worked her whole life to build. The next morning, Victoria woke up and did not find him. His bookshop was locked. His desk was empty. On the table inside was a small note in neat handwriting. "I love you with everything I have, but I would rather see you rise than be the reason you fall. Take care of yourself. Always. Daniel." Victoria stood there, the note shaking in her hands. She felt like the ground had given way beneath her. Days passed. Then came the high society gala. It was held at the Adanze Tower rooftop. Gold chandeliers, silk drapes, cameras and reporters everywhere. Every important name in business and government was there. It was supposed to be a night of power, a night to announce Victoria's agreement to consider Edwin, the bank chairman's son. Edwin stood near the stage in a sharp designer suit, smiling as cameras flashed. Victoria arrived late. All eyes turned. She walked in wearing a plain black gown. No jewelry, no dramatic entrance, just quiet strength in each step. She walked to the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," she began. Silence fell. "I know this night was planned for an announcement. There is one." People leaned forward. She looked around the room and said clearly, "I don't want a partner chosen by contracts. I want the one chosen by my heart." A few gasps. Edwin blinked, confused. "My parents gave me an ultimatum," she said, pausing. "I chose love." She looked straight into the crowd. "If you cannot accept the man who gave me hope when I was lost, who fed me when I was hungry, and who saw me when the world looked through me, then I will step down as CEO tonight. If I cannot lead with my own heart, then I have no business leading anything at all." Gasps turned to murmurs.
She stepped down from the stage and walked out into the night, head high, heart open. Meanwhile, far away from the lights and cameras, Daniel sat on the edge of his narrow bed in a small room in a new town. He had moved away to make things easier for her. Every day, he told himself, it's better this way. She deserves to fly without carrying my weight. But some nights, he held his pillow and stared at the ceiling, missing her so deeply it hurt. Meanwhile, Victoria was restless. She searched every neighborhood she knew, called every number, checked every corner where he might be. She stood outside his closed bookshop one evening, the lights off, the air still. She whispered, "Where are you, Daniel?" She had walked away from everything, but without him, even freedom felt hollow. One quiet afternoon, Victoria's father was passing through a small town on his way back from a meeting when he noticed a familiar face through the window of a classroom. Slim, a little tired, but quietly at peace, it was Daniel. He was crouched beside a young student, pointing at a book with a patient smile. Victoria's father stood at the window and watched. He watched how the child laughed when Daniel explained something. He watched how the other children raised their hands eagerly. He saw the man his daughter had chosen, not from money or position, but from something real, something he himself had forgotten how to value. His eyes grew soft. He stayed for a long time. Then he called his wife. "Come and see something," he said. "You need to see this for yourself." Victoria's mother arrived and stood beside her husband at the window. She watched Daniel in silence. She watched how he stayed after the bell rang to help a slow learner, how he shared his lunch with a child who had nothing to eat, how he laughed quietly and genuinely, a man with nothing to prove. Her chest tightened. She had judged him for his shoes and his job, but standing there, watching him, she understood at last. He had something money could not buy. Goodness. Her husband placed a hand on her arm. "She chose well," he said quietly. Victoria's mother pressed her lips together, eyes filling. "She chose better than we did," she whispered. That same evening, Victoria received a call from Grace with an address. She didn't wait. She drove herself to the small town. When she walked into the school compound, she saw Daniel sitting on a bench outside, marking papers in the fading light. He looked up and froze. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Victoria walked forward. Daniel stood up slowly. "I didn't want to be the thing that stopped you," he said softly. Victoria stepped close and held his face in her hands. "You're not the thing that stopped me. You're the reason I keep going." And just like that, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Neither of them let go for a long time. A few days later, Victoria brought Daniel to meet her parents. He sat quietly inside the Grand Adanze mansion, unsure. Then Victoria's father walked forward, removed his glasses, and looked Daniel in the eye. "I owe you an apology," he said simply. "You judged me before I ever knew you." Daniel's lips parted in quiet surprise. "You gave our daughter something we could not," Victoria's mother added, her voice soft and changed. "Peace and a reason to stay herself." She nodded, too moved to speak. "Thank you," Victoria's father said gently. Not long after, Victoria was sitting in the Adanze mansion when her phone rang. It was Daniel's family, not just his mother, all of them. Kenneth, the aunties, the cousins, all asking to speak to Victoria. One by one they came on the line, apologizing. "We should have welcomed you that day. We were wrong. I looked down on you. I am ashamed. I have learned something valuable." Daniel's mother said quietly, "Thank you for loving our son the way we should have shown him." Victoria listened, nodded, and forgave them gently, because Daniel's heart was big, and now so was hers. Soon after, the story of Victoria and Daniel was everywhere. Newspapers, blogs, business channels, the trillionaire who walked away from her empire for love, and the teacher who loved her without ever knowing her wealth or family name. Investors admired her courage. Shares in Adanze Corp doubled. Old business partners returned, new ones came. People trusted her more now, not just as a businesswoman, but as a woman with a true heart. And as for Marcus, his fall came quietly. No press, no noise. One morning, an audit at his firm revealed that he had been falsifying client reports to earn higher bonuses. He was removed without ceremony. He left in silence, knowing he had lost not just a position, but his own integrity.
The sun shone gently over the Adanze estate. The air carried the scent of fresh roses and warm earth. A long white carpet stretched down the garden aisle, lined with golden chairs and petals of white and cream. Doves waited in silver cages. The world had heard of this day. But inside the estate gates, it wasn't about wealth, it was about love. True love. Guests were seated, including business leaders, foreign dignitaries, and old friends, but Daniel's eyes searched only for one face. Then she stepped out. Victoria walked down the aisle slowly. Her white gown flowed like a quiet river. Her hair was soft and crowned with a simple veil. In her hands were white lilies, clean and gentle, just like her soul. She walked like the queen she had always been, now seen by the whole world. Gasps filled the garden, not just because of her beauty, but because of the peace in her eyes. Kenneth sat near the front, tears already on his cheeks. Daniel's mother pressed her heart to her heart, overwhelmed. As Victoria reached the altar, Daniel's eyes filled slowly with tears. She looked up at him and whispered, "Hi." He whispered back, "You are everything." The priest smiled gently and asked them to share their vows. Daniel took her hand. "Victoria Adanze," he began, his voice trembling. "When I met you, you had nothing with you. No name, no car, no famous face. But I didn't see a beggar. I saw a person. I fed you because I wanted to. I sheltered you because it was right. I never imagined you would turn my life upside down in the best possible way. I stand here today, not because of what you own, but because your love made me whole. I promise to cherish, protect, and choose you every single day, forever." Victoria wiped her tears and spoke. "Daniel Okoro," she said, her voice soft and steady. "You came into my life as a quiet stranger with tired, kind eyes. I didn't know your worth, but I knew your soul, and I loved it. You made me feel seen, safe, and valued. Even when our love was tested, you stood by what was right. You let me go so I could fly, and I choose to come back to you. I promise to walk beside you in riches and in struggle, in silence and laughter. You are my safe place, my home. I love you now and forever." The crowd wiped tears. Even the cameras seemed to pause. When the priest finally said, "You may now kiss your bride," Daniel held her face gently and kissed her with all the tenderness in his heart. The doves were released. Fireworks lit the evening sky. The crowd erupted into applause. Kenneth ran up and embraced his brother, sobbing quietly. Daniel's mother held Victoria tightly and whispered, "Thank you for loving him." Victoria's parents, humbled and changed, stood nearby, clapping with full hearts. The wedding reception was held under a wide glass canopy, filled with golden lights and music, laughter, dancing, and most of all, peace.
Victoria and Daniel danced slowly under the stars, the world watching, but fading into the background. Because in that moment, nothing else mattered. Only love. Only their promise to keep it always. Victoria was no longer just a trillionaire CEO. She was Daniel's wife, and together, they were proof that real love always wins.